concerns marriage. Marriage is central to the purpose of mortal life and what follows. We are children of a loving Heavenly Father who created us with the capacity to follow His commandments to multiply and replenish the earth. That power of creation is one of the most precious gifts we have in mortal life. But central to that gift is the law of chastity, the commandment that our powers of procreation be expressed only within marriage between a man and a woman. That commandment is central to the gospel of Jesus Christ. That reality explains why we have different values and refrain from certain behaviors that seem common among many around us.
The major victory for Satan.
Travis went good, so I'm expecting a phone call in an hour and a half. A call back. So hopefully I have time to sneak in at least one video. I just have so much to explain because I have to keep repeating information for people. And even though I've been doing these videos warning about what Oaks did, nonetheless, people do what they do. And so this one has to do with dating and Amy's letter. And he goes on eventually to talk about labeling is bad, but he'd already given 3 labels before quoting it. It's pure beam and mote in direct application by a president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so even Christians should know about the beam and the mote, whether or not they too refuse to recognize it in themselves. When they make false accusations, which is a labeling. When you are on the defensive, it is not a labeling, but the bully who gave the label in the first place loves to victim blame. When the victim dares to stand up, stand for truth, as was his theme for yesterday. And this will start with my experience in both the younger singles ward and the older singles ward. As I guess I could even include Rick's, but it was Utah's experience with the singles wards that really opened my eyes to an explanation as to why the church is struggling to get Mormons married young. First, it has to do with the nickname of BYU, Brigham Young University. And that stigma carried into Rick's College, where I came back to Rick's after my mission and was told by the guys on the dorm that I needed to make a covenant and promise not to marry within a year. I had to wait a year, not marry the first woman who bats her eyes at me. That, however, didn't apply anymore. There was a completely different response from women after I had returned from my mission than before I went on my mission and was there a year at Rick's, because it was 19 in my day. And because before, all sorts of women were asking me out on dates. Every single dance, and they held them regularly, I was asked out before my mission. And I learned that it was because they thought I was safe. That I wasn't going to pursue marriage because I have to go on a mission. And so, no, we will never have sexual desires for women. To then have an unwanted pregnancy. Well, it was wanted, but not intended to have the consequences. But that's part of the problem of miseducating Mormons on sex ed. They tell us that it's a sin unless you were married, and any other thing like unto it, even the feelings, is a sin. And so women, not knowing how a man feels about the issue, do not understand. And they assume that because the prophets are telling them to stop, that men can stop. Should be no problem. After all, the prophets are men. They were once teenagers. They were once young adults. Apparently, they were righteous and were able to stop and turn it off whenever they wanted to, and were able to wait until marriage. Book of Mormon the musical. That applies, but with a twist, because the missionary was having gay feelings and his companion was singing to him, which is hilarious because of the stereotype of those who are gay. The composer of that musical was brilliant. But nonetheless, you know, they're singing "Turn It Off." Just turn it off. And we can't. Sorry, women. You've been lied to. We've been lied to. We can't. And it's designed that way so that we feel guilty and ashamed, and that the church owns us and can then control us when we go in to confess to our bishop. And this just results in so many bad things that the Protect LDS Children movement by the bishop, who simply requested that the church have bishops stop talking to children about sexual matters in graphic detail. And he was excommunicated for it. And so the Protect LDS Children movement forced the church to change. And then now they're grooming children for polygamous child bride marriages. Next year, Millennium. You need to be following me. You need to understand the seriousness of the situation we all face. We're about to collapse as a nation. The church has paid for this to happen. They have gotten things set in order to be ready so that they can flee and then return after the aftermath and have their kingdom bought and paid for because of the land. And so that's where it became a struggle for me getting home, is that I thought women didn't like me anymore, that there was something wrong with me. And despite doing the same tactics, sort of. The guys that I had in the dorm before my mission helped facilitate things, but they really didn't work towards that as much as we had hoped it would, because we were big on volleyball. And so we'd go over to the girls' dorms because they had volleyball courts and set up volleyball nets and play volleyball outside of the girls' dorms. And it got girls' attentions, but they lost interest. So, but that didn't stop girls from asking me out on dates. I never had to take the initiative. And I think that is why we're experiencing the problem in the singles wards and the general numbers that he was giving us, the percentages, is that women are told by Oakes and previous prophets that they have to sit back on the couch, wait for the man to approach them. And so when they don't, they then get older, they go on missions, they get an education, they go on and get a career. And those things make it even tougher to find love, unless it's in the office with your boss as you're the secretary. But women are getting education, and so they then are the boss. And so when they hire female secretaries rather than male secretaries, not as likely to have a romantic spark. And so, yeah, in the older singles ward, I could see the discouragement on those women. And I was discouraged because not a single one of them perceived me as a good enough person to marry, because I'm divorced at that time. The younger singles, yeah, knowing that I'm divorced, automatically off the table. I am not worthy for them. And I saw that with physical appearance too, is that the physically fit women would not pursue a man who wasn't physically fit himself. Likewise, physically fit men wouldn't even dare ask a woman on a date if she herself wasn't physically fit. And they justify it with the word of wisdom. Gotta run and not be weary, walk and not faint. That's exercise. Not just eating right, or avoiding certain foods, or toxic substances. And this is all because of the indoctrination of the church, as the word of wisdom was turned into a commandment when it was originally just a word of wisdom. And so then it gets expanded upon, as now Mormons believe, and BYU still bans caffeinated drinks. And so Mountain Dew has to be sold on the underground. That's always how it is. When you ban something, there's an underground market for the banned substances. And so by not allowing women to be independent agents, the church is sabotaging family relationships. They're trying to stick to a traditional concept of courtship that has long been extinct and is no longer applicable in our society because of the technologies that we have, and that has resulted in a different job market. Because back in my grandpa's day, there were still plenty of farmers in an agricultural family. And then World War II happens, and women are forced to get into the job market to help provide the weaponry and the machinery for the war, where the men were dying. And then the survivors come home, and they need jobs, but women have all filled the jobs. And so now there's the clash in the economy. And so you have men who are in the top positions at businesses who are sexist, and so they want to punish women for wanting to have careers and jobs that are replacing men in their jobs to take care of a family as the head of the household, which the church, Oakes referred to the family proclamation, where it says the man is the head of the household and is responsible for the economic needs of the family. And that's what was shoved in my face when I was abandoned by the first ex. As she left because she didn't want her kids learning Hebrew. I had just deciphered Paleo-Hebrew in February, and here she was after conference making her move to abandon the marriage and flee the country with our kids, which she called her kids, and all our property. At least I was allowed to keep my clothes. Surprised she didn't keep my clothes and say, well, Clayton's going to eventually grow up. He'll need some clothes. But what an ugly mess the church has caused. Because when you have specific doctrines for a religion, those lead to consequences in the actions and behaviors and beliefs of the membership. And if you're telling the Mormons that the man is responsible for doing all the work in the relationship, he's not as inclined to do it. There has to be some desire and effort on the woman's part. And so when I grew up in a more female-liberated society where women were treated equally with men, not just blacks. And, LGBTQ were still in the closet, but I was aware of certain peers who were gay. But I can understand why they were in the closet, because other peers were the seed offspring of what would grow up into MAGA, as their white supremacy and hatred just was out of control at that young age, and now I'm seeing it applied in real time. But it's a situation where a Mormon couple can't even consider marriage because of all the economic factors. You know, we have to trust that when we get married, our reception is going to be well attended and we're going to be well provided for up front. We have to trust people for that situation. And in my situation with the first, that was not the case. There was a very poor showing. And so we remained poor. And so lots of problems were added because of the economy that caused us suffering. And the church isn't helping. You have a job. We don't need to help you. Get a better job if you're not satisfied and you can't take care of stick within your means. You know, family proclamation now. You have to take care of them, which means you have to give her what she was used to in her family with her dad, who had to work for decades to get to the level of lifestyle that she left the family with to now be with you, who's starting out in life. So major issues there. But it's even complicated as he attacks LGBTQ And I think this needs to be a separate one because I see we're at almost 20 minutes here. But Sister Oakes, to stick on the particular theme here, she was 53, never been married. And she used as her excuse the right guy had not come along yet. So the right guy was a guy whose first wife died and was already an apostle of the Lord. And does nobody else but me see the problem with that? But this was the problem of the singles in this church. In the younger singles ward, those women had that mindset that Sister Oakes used as her excuse not to be married. She used the excuse that it's the man's responsibility to ask me to marry him. And no right guy came along to ask me until Oakes did. This is cop-out excuses. If a woman likes a guy, she needs to take the initiative to let him know. It's called communication, kind of essential in marriage. I should know I have 2 failed marriages because they refuse to communicate. And let nonverbal communication, which is confusing in and of itself, hold me emotionally as a hostage. Emotional blackmail. You can't do that. And you can't use sextortion against your spouse. That is wrong. But when you are miseducated and the religion falsely indoctrinates you, women go into the marriage assuming that a man's going to behave a certain way. Sorry, he's not. He married you because you agreed to have sex with him. And so he's having to go through a lot of strain and stress waiting. Nelson lifted that burden. We can now have sex once we declare we're engaged and not have to worry about waiting a year to be sealed in the temple. We can go ahead with the sealing plans on the day that we arranged them because that's as good as married now. Nelson has made that change. So, no need to go to Las Vegas from BYU for the weekend, get married at the Elvis Temple, and have sex all weekend, and then get it annulled before coming back to BYU on Monday, which is often probably on Tuesday, because they don't want to travel on Sunday. That would be a sin. There was that issue. It came out, and it was condemned, and the word spread round and round. Hilarious. But I didn't get to participate in that. Everybody's having fun but me. But Rick's College did have the red light district. I saw a red light at one of the apartments. And I didn't even know what a red light was. I knew Lady Red Light, Rock Me Tonight, Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. But I wasn't quite sure, because I understood women who prostituted themselves were street prostitutes. I didn't realize they had a red light at their home. I didn't know. I'm a naive Mormon boy. Donna Summer, bad boy or bad girls. Again, so many songs trying to educate me correctly, but the church and their indoctrination of miseducation was keeping me clueless. And so, I don't get the younger audience, and so I can't reach them. And so you'll have to tell your kids the information, because you're gonna grow old, and then you're gonna reach that age, and it'll be too late. And then at that point, when you should know that the church was false because of what they caused you to do by no longer being able to bear kids, but then still giving you the false hope every time we learn about the Old Testament stories, which has several of them of old women who get pregnant. Seriously, there are those Mormon women too. Very few immaculately conceived jokes. That's more of a Christian thing. But it's heartbreak city in those meat markets. You have men that are desperate, begging women to date them, and they just refuse because they're begging. They are not the quality that they're looking for. And men are being victimized by our government not regulating the economy. And the church, in Utah specifically, causing the problems in the economy. You know, that's how they caused the drought. The church hoarded water from the Great Salt Lake. And so when we finally got to the extreme, where the Great Salt Lake was on an irreversible course of drying up, church all of a sudden says, oh yeah, we'll donate some water. Problem solved. And then we have a massive surge of snow to compensate because of the church's water that they put in. And then that led to the flooding damage. And then now we're expected to have intense heat for this summer, which with the flooding areas is going to make things worse. You guys just don't see how the church is impacting your lives for the worse. How they are purposely causing the Armageddon scenarios so that they can get their kingdom back. That's what they're doing all this for. They're literally evil so that they can get their kingdom back. Hey, the angry dog. Anybody who knows how to program an app game, there's $1 million idea for you. Angry dogs. You can determine which dog is the more vicious at the higher levels. But, well, alright, we're done, I think. But, yeah, there's nobody that works together. And the economic struggle is also behind women not wanting to have multiple babies, plus the cultural, psychological indoctrination, brainwashing that has occurred. Because after World War II, we went into the nuclear age, and it created a nuclear family. So TV commercials were specifically repeating the perfect household that contains 2.5 children. No more were families supposed to have 8 to 13 kids, because the baby boom panicked the government. They wanted to keep the population under control. And like China had to go to drastic measures to control their population rather than continuing to build to meet the needs of the people. And so they purposely caused the suffering to punish the poor. And likewise, it's being done here in America and here in Utah. where there is a clear division of the rich versus the poor in this valley. And we've reached our max of rich, as brand new homes are only affordable for the rich. And we've maxed out. And so that's why the church is building all these brand new apartments in a rush now, is to house those who are survivors for their kingdom in the millennium next year. And so, yeah, we're all paying the price for the church to get their kingdom, for which we will be punished for not qualifying. Isn't that great? So, yeah, if the singles wards could teach the women this one thing: you are an independent agent. Don't sit down and be acted upon. You want something in life, get it, but understand the consequences. And that's why, women go and get a career, education, so that they can only have 1 or 2 children when they turn 40. And they'll have the perfect guy at 40 years of age, all ready for them, waiting. Oh, here I am. You found me. Oh, a Hallmark movie moment. Fantasies always get women into trouble. Always. 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 And so I refer you to the movie Romancing the Stone. It's just awesome. So yeah, that's why women go into marriages thinking they can change the man. It's because they've been fooled into thinking it's their responsibility, that they have to be acted upon, but once they're married, all of a sudden they've got power and they wear the pants in the family. They now are the bullies who preside in secret. That's not how it works. Communication. You need to be on the same page. And with a urban and even suburban upbringing, that clashes now. See, with farmer societies, you get a farmer's daughter, she knows exactly how to live in the life and her responsibilities on the farm. And the man, he knows his responsibilities on the farm, and everything's fine. But now you have situations where women can do other things and have to do other things because they're not on a farm anymore. And so she can go to school and she can become whoever she wants to be and have any kind of career she wants. And then that makes it more difficult in selecting a husband, because if she gets a job that takes her out of the state, out of the city, she has to find a man who's able to go with her. And does he have a job, or is she now the breadwinner of the family? And all these extra problems emerge because of our changing society. And so the prophets are purposely not accepting that because they want Mormons back to the traditional family. And so, yeah, they're giving you your freedom now. And then because it's failing, they then will victim blame you and take away your agency and said you were unable to exercise your agency correctly. We have to take it away from you, and you have to be forced to be a breeder. And so no more education for you, no more career. You are a breeder. And we've just executed humanity, and so we need you to breed at 11 years of age, as soon as you can breed, to restore the kingdom of humanity. So, what a mess. So, now, that's just some of the issues.